am Jane Goodall. I am Jane Goodall. I am Jane Goodall. On my first birthday, my father bought me a cuddly toy chimpanzee named Jubilee. Jubilee, meet Jane. I love Jubilee. I mean it. Loved. I used to carry Jubilee with me everywhere. As I got older, when I lined up all my toys and played teacher, Jubilee was the one who had his own chair. Yes, Jubilee, correct as always. I didn't just love my toy chimpanzee, though. I loved all animals, even the earthworms I found in the garden. Did you bring the earthworms inside the house? Don't worry, Mom. They're safe as can be. Right under my pillow. Mom, you gotta see this picture. At 5 years old, I was curious to learn how chickens lay eggs. So I crawled into my grandmother's hen house to watch. At first, all the hens were scared of me. Then I decided to crouch in the corner if I had moved. The hens would have run away. I was patient, though. Aww. I like the hen design and the hay under Jane. Finally, after all the hours of waiting, I saw what I was looking for. The hen gave a little wiggle and plop! There was an egg. Where were you? You've been missing for so long. We sent out a search party. You'll never believe where eggs come from. It was my first research project. In addition to animals, I also loved nature. I named the chestnut tree Nookie, and the beech tree Beach. Beach was my favorite. Thank you, Beach, for letting me read up here. Oh, that was another thing I loved, reading. I like this picture the best. Back then, my family didn't have a lot of money to get books. When we went to the library when I was 7 years old, I got a book that would change my life. It was called The Story of Dr. Dolittle. I read it once, then read it again, then read it a third time before I had to go back to the library. It was about a man who could talk to animals. Oh, sure. I know Dr. Dolittle. In the book, there's a pair who says that if you want to learn how animals talk, you need the power of observation. But what I remember most is the part where Dr. Dolittle and his animal friends are being chased and they come to a cliff. How are we ever going to get across the cliff? How are we ever going to get across? A bridge. Quick, make a bridge. Right there. The monkeys joined hands and feet. They became the bridge. Isn't that beautiful? We can't accomplish anything by working together. After reading that book, I vowed that I would go to Africa and live among the animals. By the time I was 12, I had my own nature group, the Alligator Club. My friends and I raised money to help old horses. We took nature walks and wrote down what we saw, or at least I did. And if you wanted to have a high rank in the club, you had to be able to recognize 10 dogs, 10 birds, 10 trees, and 5 butterflies or moths. How about I go first? Something tells me she's going to name them all perfectly. Each of us even had our own animal name. Jane was a red admiral, named after a beautiful butterfly. Was I the best student? Not really. On school days, I didn't like being indoors. But if we were outside, or there were animals around, that's when I'd get excited. Guess how many pets I had? There was a lizard with no legs named Ivor, guinea pigs named Gandhi and Jimmy, racing snails with numbers painted on them, Pickles the cat, Hamlet the hamster, and Peter the canary. And that didn't include the dogs I looked after, like my favorite Rusty, who liked wearing pajamas. Woof! That means he likes pajamas. I wanted a job where I could learn more about animals. But back then, if you were a girl, people didn't think you could become a scientist. They expected girls to become nurses, secretaries, or teachers. I wanted to go to Africa. I wanted to study animals. Luckily, my mom always told me, if you really want something, work hard for it. If you don't give up, you'll find a way. I never forgot that. Soon, I had my chance. One of my school friends invited me to visit her family in Kenya. That's right, in Africa. There's the Jim Henson clue. Da, da, da. To pay for the trip, I worked as a waitress and hid my money under the carpet. One day I closed the curtains, counted it all, and I've got enough. I'm going to Africa. The trip took 21 days by boat. I was 23 years old. It all seemed like a dream until I saw a giraffe who stared directly at me. It had dark eyes, long lashes, a black tongue, and was chewing acacia thorns. Acacia thorns, whatever that's called. I knew my dream was coming alive. Finally, I was in the Africa of Dr. Dolittle. Aw, that's a pretty cool picture as well. 2 months later, my life changed again. Someone told me if you are interested in animals, you must meet Dr. Louis Leakey. Nice to meet you. I'm Jane Goodall. I hear you like animals. You have no idea. You have no idea. Dr. Leakey was an anthropologist, which means he studied how humans live, and also a paleontologist, which means he studied fossils and bones. That's the same thing like Mary Anning. She was a paleontologist too. At first, he hired me as a secretary, but he was quickly impressed with what I knew about animals, including his own pets. Eventually, Dr. Leakey told me about a new job, studying chimpanzees up close. He said going into the forest would be hard. It would be dangerous. But if we could find out how chimps live today, we'd learn more about how our own prehistoric ancestors used to live. I have no college degree, no training, and no experience. But I want that job. Jane, I've been waiting for you to say that. For a year, I read everything I could about chimpanzees. They're always observed in a lab. No one has studied them in a jungle where they actually live. I also told that women couldn't be alone in the forest. They said I needed a guide, plus a companion. My mom offered to come. I was ready. I knew you wouldn't give up. I'll never forget the day, July 16th, 1960, the day I first set foot in what is today Gom National Park in Tanzania, Africa. At 26 years old, I have finally made it to the home of chimpanzees. It was a place that would change my life. I knew it would, Jane. During one of my first explorations, we saw 2 chimpanzees eating in a tall tree. They noticed us and ran away. They're scared of us. The next day, we didn't see any chimpanzees. There were no chimpanzees the day after that either. That's funny. For months, I tried to get close, but they kept running away. Then I started going alone. Just me. I'd go to a high area called the peak and look down with my binoculars. You can clearly see the chimpanzees, but I don't think they're running away though. This was my secret. Be patient. Learn about how they lived. Slowly move closer and closer. In time, I saw that the chimpanzees would hang out in groups of 6 or fewer. The female chimps would be with the children. The male chimps would be with one another. These were mindless animals. This was a community. How many pages till we're at the end? Still, it took nearly a year before I could get within 100 yards of the chimpanzees. One day I came back to camp and found out. One of the male chimpanzees took our food, including your bananas. Fantastic, that means they're not scared of me now. I bet he'll be back tomorrow. The next day, I waited and waited. There were no chimpanzees in sight. Then at 4 p.m., I heard a rustling noise by my tent. It was the large male chimpanzee with a thick beard. David Graybeard. That was the name I gave him. Back then, people told me there was a certain way to study animals that I shouldn't give the chimpanzees names. They said animals were supposed to have numbers, not names. Why? They thought animals didn't have personalities or emotions. They thought that if we gave them names, we'd start pretending they were like us. But that's what no one realized. They were like us. That day, David Graybeard took my nuts and my bananas. A month later, he took one from my hand. Even later, out in the forest, he slowly approached me and checked to see if I had a banana in my pocket. It was one of my proudest moments, having the other chimpanzees now understand that I wasn't a threat. I was their friend, and they were mine. Okay, I will stop there. See you later for part 2.